one of my co-founders, her friend had a medical bill that was over $100,000, and I believe he negotiated down to $30,000.
Almost 80% of medical billing have errors. Yeah, 80%. And today's guest, her name is Miki Safronov. She built Vero Health, a startup that's caught tens of thousands of dollars in medical billing errors.
So VeraHealth was featured in like a few different publications. Yeah, one of them was Apple. I mean, we were also featured in the New York Times, USA Today, Fox, a few others. I remember when I first got into like creating content, posting out online about the college guidance business. And when I was starting out, like people would make fun of me. But then I think like the tables kind of turned when those videos started to get like tens of millions of views.
So if there's like a 15 or 16-year-old listening right now, what would be the first thing or the first step that they should take?
If you're like 15 years old, you should be cold calling, cold emailing, like as many people as you can, because you don't really have like much of a knowledge or expert base in anything.
Miki, can you give us an example of one of the craziest billing errors you ever caught? Here's a question for you. When was the last time you got a medical bill and actually checked if it was correct? Like line by line. Yeah, that's the problem. Most people don't really do that. Because here's what nobody tells you. Almost 80% of medical billing have errors. Yeah, 80%. And that means your family could be overpaying by hundreds and sometimes even thousands of dollars, and you'd never even know. And today's guest figured this out at 18 years old. While most of us can't even get hired at Starbucks, she interned at Microsoft in high school and moved on to solving problems that affected millions of families. Her name is Miki Safronov. She built Vero Health, a startup that's caught tens of thousands of dollars in medical billing errors. And she also runs Founder House, literally the only all-female hacker house in the entire world. And Apple even featured them in a global ad narrated by Jane Goodall. She's grown multiple social media accounts to tens of millions of views, and she's doing this all while being a full-time student at USC. And we're going to learn more about her later, but first, Miki, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
Thank you for that introduction. I'm doing good. Excited to be on here.
Thank you, Miki. All right, so the first question I want to ask is, where do you even get the idea to create Founder House?
Yeah, so just for a little bit of an intro on Founder House, we're an all-female hacker house based in San Francisco, and I started Founder House in the second semester of my freshman year with another girl from USC who's also a founder and a really good friend. And basically, we were both founders, had our own companies, and kind of realized that we really wanted to take the next leap with our startups, and we really wanted to kind of go full-time, work on them, and not really take an internship and just work on our own companies. And so we really wanted to, take that kind of risk and work on our startups over the summer. And we started to look into a few different like opportunities like hacker houses. And then we quickly realized how, I guess, not really accessible those were for women, just because the ratio would really be terrible. And like, it'd be like one girl and like 10 guys in one house. And it's just really not the most comfortable space that a young woman would really want to live in. And so we started to look into like the problem a little bit more. We saw that there was only one other hacker house, all-female hacker house before us. And we talked to a lot of our female founder friends, and they all had similar shared experiences. We talked to people who had lived in these hacker houses and those who were women, and they also didn't have the best experiences either. And kind of after hearing all of this, talking to a lot of people, we realized that we just needed to start our own, and that's kind of how it all started.
So now I understand how it started. I also saw you got featured in an Apple ad narrated by Jane Goodall, right? So what was that like? Like, did Apple reach out to you, or how did that work?
Yeah, so Founder House was featured in like a few different publications. Yeah, one of them was Apple. I mean, we were also featured in the New York Times, USA Today, Fox, a few others. And I think I can't go too much into the specifics on exactly how the Apple ad came to be, just because these things are kind of confidential, but they did reach out, and I think I can't speak on behalf of them, but I would say that they probably really like resonated with the whole like mission of Founder House, because like if you watch that ad, there's like a lot of different like people who are kind of like trailblazers and people going against the grain and things like that. And I think that really resonates with like the whole Founder House mission.
Okay, so for anyone listening who doesn't know exactly what a Founder House is, could you like explain it in simple terms as to like what happens there? Like, is it just people coding on laptops 24/7, or is there more to it?
Yeah, so a hacker house or a founder house is basically like a house that a bunch of founders split and, live together. It's like kind of like a co-living situation. And I think it originated from a bunch of like young, scrappy builders who wanted to get cheap rent in cities like San Francisco, where it's really expensive to live. And as a founder, starting up a company, you don't really have that much capital to spend on things like your housing, right? And so I think the hacker house kind of filled that void, and also it helped bring together like communities of founders. Being a founder is a very lonely journey, and if you're doing it alongside other people and it feels a little bit less crazy. It feels a lot better. You feel like supported by those around you. And in terms of kind of what would go on around in the house, we had 8 girls living in the house this summer, and they were all kind of, like in and out sometimes for taking different meetings. But usually we'd be in the house co-working with each other, having our laptops out on the counter and like on the table and everything, and just working. And yeah, everyone in the house was working on their own startup. So it was really interesting. There were a bunch of different industries like healthcare, fashion tech, like even like stable coins and stuff like that, like finance. Yeah, we really had a lot of different climate tech. And so it was really nice for all the girls in the house to kind of share what they're working on, learn from each other. I got to learn so much from other industries. I was really deep into healthcare, but I got to learn a lot about a lot about the AI space and just a lot of different things that I think I wouldn't have really picked up on if I didn't live amongst these people who are really building at like the frontier and like the forefront of all these industries.
All right, so Miki, I want to talk about Vero Health now. I know it's no longer active, but I'd like to know how you even discovered that 80% of medical billings have errors.
Yeah, so how I stumbled upon the idea for Vero Health was during my first semester of my freshman year at USC. I joined a startup accelerator and club called SEP, and we were in a team of 3 actually, and one of my co-founders, her friend had a medical bill that was over $100,000, and I believe he negotiated down to $30,000, and I think it was a process of about like 7 months, and it was a lot of phone calling, a lot of emailing, a lot of back and forth with the hospital, looking through the medical bill, finding out that there were so many different errors, like duplicate charges, like bundling errors, just simple overcharging, and yeah, so kind of he was looking into that bill, and that's how I heard about this problem. And after hearing that story, I was kind of shocked because I had actually never even heard of people disputing their medical bills. Like I thought you just have to pay whatever you get, right? And I had no really like interest or I guess like no knowledge about the healthcare industry. So this was all really new to me. And once I heard that story though, I was super like intrigued and just started to kind of do my own deep dive into the medical billing space and then realized that 80% of medical bills contain errors. And most people don't know about that, and most people don't even know how to begin to like dispute their medical bill. And so that's kind of how I wanted to create a tool to help people find these errors and yeah, basically save money on their wrongful medical bills.
Yeah, so I wanted to connect the experience of people figuring out about like these problems because I'm guessing most people would just be like, "Wow, that sucks," when they find out like a problem like this. So, what did you believe that you could actually solve the problem?
I think for me, I'd always been very interested in entrepreneurship ever since I was really young. I was always like doing little side hustles online. I was always just working on my own projects and stuff. And I think USC was definitely a great environment to be in. I think surrounding yourself around the right people who push you to do, the best that you can do, push you to kind of go after really hard problems or go after risks. I think that's really important. And I found that community right away, within my major, but also within the entrepreneurship club. And so kind of having that accelerator program, we had about 10 weeks to basically come up with an idea and pitch it in front of a stage of like hundreds of people. And so it was really like a pressure cooker, right? Like I was working super hard trying to make things work. And I think that definitely gave me the push to actually go after solving this problem. It definitely wasn't an easy problem. I didn't have like much background experience at all in this space, but I think surrounding yourself around the right people who want to support you and push you, I think that's important. Maybe joining like an accelerator program. I know like Techstars or like YC have really great programs, or maybe your like schools, like entrepreneurship club might have a good program as well. So there's a lot of resources out there, a lot of different accelerators. Like one of them is like Founders Inc. They accept a lot of really great people. So yeah, I think like kind of doing a little bit of research and seeing what's available around you would be good. But yeah, that's kind of the advice I would give there.
For our audience listening, could you just explain what human-centered design is for them and how it helps to tackle the problem of healthcare or any other problem?
Yeah, so human-centered design basically just means that you're designing around the human. You're kind of looking into who is the customer that you're building for, and honestly being obsessed with the customer. Like you need to really put yourself in their shoes. You need to figure out what they value, what they want, what problems are like just huge pain points for them. And I think that's kind of something that both my co-founder and I really, really like emphasized when we were working on Vera. We just wanted to help get the customer to have the best experience possible when disputing their medical bill. And so that meant for us, we would literally go back and forth talking to people who got medical bills and actually manually disputing at the beginning. Like we didn't use any AI to automate any of the process. We were the ones personally calling up the hospital on behalf of our like patient or client and basically helping them dispute that medical bill, learning about what issues that they came across. And I think that was incredibly important. And you really can't solve a problem unless you've lived it. And by us, like actually going through the process of disputing a medical bill many times, actually, with different hospitals, calling different people, I think we were able to finally get a grasp on how how terrible of like a pain point this was, and then that's what allowed us to build like a good solution for them.
So I have another question, and that is, how do you like really get like what your customers value? Like, did you call them up? Because you said you did call up a few people and talk to people who've gotten medical bills. So, like, other than calling, what did you really do to find out what your customers really value while creating Vera?
Yeah, so I would say calling is like the biggest one, like meeting them in person. For us, we called about like, well, we called like many hundreds of medical bill advocates. It was basically like a person that you kind of go to when you get a super large medical bill and you want to dispute it. Let's say you get like screwed over, you know that this bill is wrong. You go to a medical bill advocate who's kind of like a lawyer for your medical bill. And so they're experts in disputing medical bills. So they're the first people that we talked to. So we called hundreds of them. A lot of it was cold calling, a lot of cold emailing, LinkedIn messaging, all of that. And we just hopped on calls with these people and just really broke down like every single step of the process and tried to get a full understanding of the problem. And then, we can't just only talk to the medical bill advocates, but we also have to talk to the patients, right? So then we, made a lot of effort to talk to a bunch of different patients, like hundreds of patients, honestly, and just kind of hear about like their experience having these wrongful medical bills. And then also talking to the hospital. That was the last missing piece, right? So the advocate, the patient, the hospital, and talking to them and actually disputing those medical bills with the hospital. And yeah, I think having all those missing pieces really helped to figure out what everybody wanted, because we're building a solution for the patient, but you have to understand how the hospital operates, what they really want to get out of this. Yeah, you need to have all the missing pieces together, get the full story there.
Miki, can you give us an example of one of the craziest billing errors you've ever caught?
Yeah, I think honestly, almost any medical billing error is crazy, and it still is crazy for me. I would say I remember a medical bill that was, I think, like $32,000, and we were able to scan that medical bill and then realize that they were overcharged by, I think, $10,000 or $12,000. And so that was like a third of the bill was completely wrong. And that's a huge number that you could save. And so I think that was really interesting, and kind of shocking to see that. Another like friend that I disputed a medical bill for, her bill was $2,500 and we brought it down to zero. And so, there's like instances like that where you can kind of like clear the entire bill. And there's a lot of different strategies that kind of go into that. A lot of advocates also have their own strategies that work for disputing medical bills. But yeah, I think honestly, almost every single bill is overcharged, right? 80%. And so you can really find some crazy savings the more, yeah, exactly.
So that's pretty crazy. And you were offering this for free, right? So why did you get the feeling that you needed to shut it down?
Yeah, so we were offering it for free at the beginning just to kind of get interest. We did actually end up charging, like, we started charging pretty low and then we were thinking about raising it. We started $10 per medical bill just for a scan. And then for the actual disputing process, that was going to be like $199, which is much cheaper than the alternatives. Like hiring an advocate could cost you thousands of dollars, right? Or sometimes they'll do like a 20% of whatever we save them. But since we're using AI, our margins are definitely a lot lower. Like we're not paying a human to go and like spend hours on the phone with the hospital. Yeah. And so we were able to charge a little bit less. And yeah, we actually also worked a little bit on the B2B side as well, working with TPAs, third-party administrators, to kind of work on the self-funded employer side. So they also care about lowering medical bills for their employees since they're paying for their medical claims. And so that was another angle that we took. And ultimately we did decide to start up down, and that was mostly due to like co-founder split. Nothing really like bad happened. Like my co-founder and I are still great friends, but we just had a bit of like different views for where we wanted to take the startup. And I'm also happy to like potentially in the future, if I find the right person, start the startup again. And I'm very open to that. But currently kind of focusing on a few different things right now, taking a little bit of a break, but definitely open to starting it back up again.
Yeah, so I recently had a guest whose name was Michael Fanis, and he actually specializes in creating like AI bots to do exactly what you want to do, like scan bills for Vera. So maybe you can connect with him after or watch the episode, and that'll be like really great for you guys.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, I wanted to get practical now, right? So if there's like a 15 or 16-year-old listening right now who has an idea for something big, what would be the first thing or the first step that they should take?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing about like the advantage of being like a teenager, being young in the startup space, is that people are actually very open to helping you. And I think this is advice that people probably heard before, but I just really want to nail it down. So I think like if you're like 15 years old, you should be cold calling, cold emailing like as many people as you can, because you don't really have like much of a knowledge or expert base in anything, right? So find an industry that you really like could be healthcare, it could be whatever, AI, and just like talk to like the people that are most interesting in that space. Like let's say you want to build something for doctors, right? go out and call a bunch of doctors. And if you just tell them, I'm 15 years old, I'm in high school, and I really am just like obsessed with the space, they're probably going to give you 10 or 15 minutes of their day just to talk to you and help you. And that goes for the same like emails as well. There's a lot of great stories that I've heard of, like of cold emails that went really well, just because, in the header, you just type in like, I'm a 15-year-old student from blah, 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 working on blah, 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 and I'd love to like learn more or take a bit of your time to kind of like have a conversation. And so a lot of people are very willing to help. I think like one of the famous story for that is like Shane Copeland. I'm pretty sure when he was like 13 or 14, he emailed the FTC about like just emailing them about like markets and stuff. And then he went on to build Polymarket, right? And so like it's kind of crazy that like, when he was like 13 or 14, he was like still hustling, sending a bunch of emails. And then many years down the line, he was able to build like $1 billion company around that same topic. So I think finding what you're passionate about when you're really young is great. And then just trying to meet as many people as you can in that space to learn as much as you can.
You ran a college consulting company and saw students stress over applications, right? So for like everyone freaking about college right now, what are some things that we are worrying about that don't actually matter? And what are some things that really matter that no one talks about?
Yeah, some things that people are stressing out about that don't matter. I guess something that I would say, like I've been out of the college consulting space for a minute now, but I think at least the most important things for like a student who's trying to apply to college would be like really just make it clear like what you're passionate about. And a lot of students, I would say, do things in high school just for it to be on their application, right? Like they'll join Key Club or whatever, or they'll join like National Honor Society. Those are some random things. And I've seen some people who aren't passionate about those things and they just put it on their application just because they think it'll look good. And that's like the worst thing that you could do because people can like sense that from a mile away. Like if you actually are interested in anything, you want to dive as deep as you can into that thing. Like it could be something that's not really like seen as, like good for college or whatever. Like I have a lot of friends who did a lot of content creation when they were in high school and that was just like their biggest passion and they really just went deep on that. And that's not something that a lot of like counselors would recommend, like, oh, you should do content creation, like that is really great on your application or whatever. But it just was something that they were passionate about, that they spent a lot of time in doing, and like they really perfected their craft and skills in that space, and then they wrote about that in their essays. And I think that was really great, just showing that you're passionate. And yeah, not just doing everything for the application, like that doesn't even really matter. Just I think it's so much more impressive that you don't do just a bunch of little things that look good, but you do like one or two things that you really love.
You deep dive into them.
Yeah, you actually make an impact in that space too. I think that's also really great.
I'm in grade 10, and when I ask anyone about their internships or future plans, they look at me like I'm crazy. Like in high school, were you surrounded by driven people, or were you the only one who actually cared? And how did you keep going when no one around you was motivated?
I actually really resonate with kind of what you said there. Yeah, I went to a public high school, and so I mean, a lot of people there, like, there were definitely, like, a few people who were very ambitious. Like, one of my best friends was very ambitious. She was, like, captain of the robotics team, and I was able to find a really great community, especially robotics, of people who actually were very ambitious, had big goals, really wanted to kind of make a change and impact in the world. But I also did run into a lot of people who didn't, and just kind of were, like, not really interested in anything, not really working towards their goals, and that wouldn't really bother me until, like, unless, like, people actually, like, would like speak down upon like kind of what I was doing with like my business. A lot of people thought it was kind of stupid. People thought it was like embarrassing that I was like, trying to make things work. And I remember when I first got into like creating content, posting out online, I would make a lot of like Instagram reels and like TikTok videos about the college guidance business. And when I was starting out, like people would make fun of me for it, like a few people did. But then I think like the tables kind of turned when those videos started to get like tens of millions of views. And then people were like, oh shoot, okay, like she actually has like the numbers to back it up. And I think that's like my biggest thing is like, don't try to care about what anybody else is saying. And you will definitely run into a lot of people who
will like bring me down or bring you down with them.
Exactly. Bring you down with them, and just like maybe they feel insecure that you're off doing like really great things and they don't have the courage to go and do those things and take risks. Like, yeah, posting yourself online and making content, yeah, it's like a very uncontrollable kind of thing there. And so yeah, I think it's just the best thing is just like not listen to anyone, just like follow what you want to do, follow what you're passionate about, and also find the community, people who will uplift you. Like I found that in my robotics community, but you could probably find that somewhere else as well.
Yeah, thank you so much for that advice, Mickey. Now, I want to talk about the fear of failing because I think a lot of teens, and sometimes I feel this too, like we see people like you doing these huge and amazing things, and we're like, what if I try and it doesn't work out? So, how did you get over that fear?
Yeah, I think the fear of failure is definitely real. Like I had that like a lot. I still have that, right? But I think it gets better as you go, as the more that you fail, and like there's kind of no way about it other than just you have to fail, and then you'll realize it's not that bad. And I think also another thing is like many people like think about the worst thing that could happen and then imagine that it's like 10 times worse than the actual worst thing that could happen. Like in realistically, like we're always gonna like make ourselves like worry much more than we really need to. Like for example, like failing a business, like what is the worst thing that could happen, right? You still gain skills, you still gain experience, you gain knowledge about what works, what doesn't work, and then you fail. And that's okay, you know, you're still like young and you can go start again. And now you're starting 10 times better because you have that knowledge. And I've met so many people, especially in college, who've gone on to start their own startups, literally put everything into them and then fail. And then the second start that they start is like, I've physically seen this and it's been like 100 times better than the last one. And then they go on to raise millions of funding and just like kind of following a lot of people's journeys like that. It just made it really clear that like failure is not like a setback. If anything, it's going to just push you forward.
It's going to help you even more.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you've mentioned you've grown multiple social media accounts to tens of millions of views, and that's a major skill at 18. So, how did you do that? Like, is there a strategy or framework that you can share with our listeners if possible?
Yeah, I think in terms of like a framework, just kind of playing off of trends and kind of putting your own spin on that is my favorite way of going viral or, you know, doing well online. And I think I'm definitely not like the most expert in terms of social media, but I feel like I found that I kind of have my own way of doing things and it does work multiple times over. And so for example, like I would just like scroll on TikTok, just find a trend that I like and then bring that over to my niche. So my niche was college guidance, right? And I didn't have to just search up college guidance TikToks or whatever and just copy exactly, but I would find things that were trending in the general space and then bring that over to college guidance. And I did that same thing with Vero as well. So in our first 2 weeks, I think we had 150,000 views from like literally zero to 150,000 in the first 2 weeks. And that was just a lot of consistent uploading and again, repeating that pattern, finding something that does well in the general space. And I found like a trend that was really hitting just for like a bunch of other like startups, a bunch of different products. And then I brought that concept over to medical billing and I just made a video. It did good. And I think another thing is like, don't fix what's not broken, right? And so if one video was really hit and it's working, just recreate that video, make it a little bit different, but just kind of,
Like, modify, yeah.
yeah.
Help.
Yeah.
So, Microsoft hired you when you're still in high school. So, what did you do that other teens weren't doing? Give us the real strategy, like not a generic, like network and work hard advice that everyone gives us.
Yeah. So, I mean, with the Microsoft internship, that was kind of me being in the right place at the right time. But I would say, so that was through my high school's program. They had like an internship program, and actually one of the advisors recommended me for that program. And they recommended me and a few other people, and I think the reason for that was because I made a lot of effort to kind of show up like to class really like on a good like positive energy, you know, and just meeting the teacher and like really getting along with her. And it was able to give me that recommendation even very on into my freshman year. And I think that's just kind of how I approach like every opportunity. Like you should be grateful for you should be grateful coming to class every day, and you shouldn't like ever just come to class and be like checked out and not really like
I just want to get this class done and stuff like that.
Yeah, you don't want to ever take things for granted just because you should be grateful to even be in that position in the first place. And I think by having that mindset to everything that I do, I think a lot of people like that and appreciate that. And so I was able to get that recommendation. But yeah.
You were a Microsoft product design intern while still being a teenager. So how do you break into a Fortune 500 company at that age? Like, what was your actual playbook for teens who want these kind of internships but don't know where to start?
Yeah, I think in general to get an internship is actually not as hard as people make it seem to be. And that might be like kind of like contrarian, but I would say, especially for startups at least, I think it's so easy. It's never been easier to get a job. Like, because I mean, I can talk about like the whole VC market, funding market, whatever, and everyone is funding so many different startups and so many different companies. And there are a lot of extremely high growth companies right now, especially like the whole AI wave, right? And so it's really not that hard, honestly. And a lot of it comes down to networking. A lot of it comes down to putting yourself in the right places. And a lot of it comes down to agency and just being a go-getter. Agency is really hard to come by, and these founders and these like hiring teams really, really appreciate agency. So if you're able to demonstrate that and you're able to go after opportunities instead of like kind of just like
Waiting for them?
yeah, instead of waiting them or just not really putting yourself out there. There's a lot of people who are doing that, but kind of going about things like in a creative way. Basically, every single job that I've had has been through network, and I've never like gotten a job from like formally applying on a form. I don't think LinkedIn applications work anymore. Like that's kind of a thing of the old age. Like nobody really does that anymore. Nobody who actually wants a job can get it just from a cold application online. And yeah, if you want to go work at a company, go email like somebody who's on the hiring team, and just again, like if you're a teenager, you could be like 15 years old, really interested in this space, would love to chat. And you can even email the founder, honestly. Most of the time, they might even respond, especially for startups. And I've met so many of my friends who've gotten hired at insane like startups just from emailing and cold outreach. And so that works a lot better than just like a cold application.
You're the youngest in rooms full of experienced founders at VCs. So, have you dealt with imposter syndrome, or are people just trying to make you feel like you don't deserve to be there? And if so, how do you handle that?
Yeah, I mean, 100%. Definitely experienced imposter syndrome many times. I think something that helps with that is surrounding yourself with other people who are your age, who are going after the same goals as you, to make it, it feels a lot more attainable in that way. And I think that was kind of a goal of the Founder House as well. A lot of young women don't really have like a great like founder role model to look up to. I guess like young men might, like they see Steve Jobs, Elon Musk, right, Bezos, Bill Gates, all these people. And that's who they think of when they think of founder, right? But then for young women like me, I didn't really know who to even look up to, right? There weren't really like any super famous like tech figures, right? Yeah, and so I think that's like a big thing with the Founder House, was just increasing representation. And I think just by feeling like you were represented, like, so, oh, that person looks like me, that's somebody who's going after the same goals as me. That definitely helps a lot. And so, yeah, just kind of doing your best to meet those people, finding communities that facilitate that whole meeting process. I think that's been really great. Moving to San Francisco for the summer, like that was really great. Got to meet so many young founders there. People who are younger than me, and I'm 19, right? Just turned 19, but I saw like 16, 17-year-olds starting companies, and they were doing amazing. And so I think that always helped.
Vicky, take me through a typical Tuesday. Like, when do you wake up? How do you juggle classes and founder calls? And do you just ever be a regular college student?
Yeah, so I think, I mean, like typically on a school day, I just wake up kind of early. So I have my first class at 10, but I usually wake up around like 8:30, 8. Sometimes I hit the gym beforehand, but recently I've just been like in a bunch of calls in the morning, since that's usually like what works with my schedule. And so usually on calls, right now we're fundraising for Founder House, so we're looking to raise 150,000, and we're a little bit over halfway our goal, but looking to close the rest. So the past few weeks have been just calls and, meeting investors, meeting donors, just like, just sharing about what Founder House really is. And so that's been usually my mornings the past few weeks. And then I hit the class and, just have a couple, usually like two classes a day, or 2 or 3 classes. And then, in between I'll have something to eat and just do some work. And I think for me, honestly, almost my entire day consists of just work of some sort. Like, there isn't really much downtime for me, and that's something that doesn't really, like, bother me. I think, like, a lot of people might get burnt out, but I think if you really love what you're doing, you're never gonna, like, I mean, you're not never gonna get burnt out, but it'd be a lot harder to get burnt out. Because I just love Founder House so much, and I also love, so I actually I like worked for a short amount of time at this healthcare startup called Lunabill. I was their head of growth, and I would also work like that startup also sometime throughout the day, just working part-time. But yeah, I never really felt like that was work too much. Like, I just enjoyed the startup so much. I loved the work that I was doing. I thought like I had a lot of ownership, a lot of agency, and just thought it was so interesting. Every single day I was learning so much just working at the startup. And so, yeah, I never really had a problem with the work. So if you feel like you're getting burnt out and stuff, maybe it's like a sign that the work that you're doing isn't in line with what you really want to do.
You don't really enjoy it.
Yeah, and so just kind of after that, just working, dinner, and usually in the evenings I'm a little bit more free because the workday ends, so I don't have any more calls after like 5 p.m. And so usually just spend some time with friends. And I think that's really important, just, not neglecting
Social.
that.
You can't just always
Yeah,
be working.
exactly.
All right. So we're getting close to the end here, and I want to do some quick rapid fire questions. So just state the first thing that comes to your mind, okay? Best advice you've ever gotten?
I would say the best advice that I've ever gotten is I think the cold email one, that is literally the best advice I've ever gotten. I think that is just such a good idea and like something that I mean, a lot of my friends also like really use that whole cold email thing. And I would say that I've gotten like crazy connections just from cold emailing. And especially when I was first starting at Founder House, I was cold emailing almost everybody because I had no VC network. And what's really great is once you have that one in, that person, when you get on a call with them, every single time you coffee chat someone or every time you set up a meeting, always ask them for another connection. And you like never let that like stop, right? So that person you ask for who are the three people I should talk to, and then that person will connect you to those three people, and then you have three more calls to take. You ask those three people who are the three people I should call.
Keep on multiplying.
Yeah, exactly. Infinite amount of knowledge that you can obtain from these calls. And so, yeah, just cold emailing, get that one in, and then they'll connect you to everyone else.
What's the worst advice you ever gotten?
I would say, yeah, the worst advice I've ever gotten is to play it safe. I think that is something that I've heard a lot. For example, like a lot of people would hear or see that you have like internships lined up for the summer, and a lot of people would be like, oh, why are you starting Founder House? Then why are you like working on your own startup? Why don't you just do your internship? Like, what if things go wrong, right? And that's like a fair response. A lot of people have like a very low risk tolerance, and I think for me, like that's not great advice because I've found the opposite. I found that you can literally get so much further by betting on yourself and taking a risk than not taking that risk. And like I think it's just maybe like how my personality is. Like I would just regret so much if I decided to not take that risk, decided to not bet on myself and just go down the safe route. Like that's never been what I've been about, and I've just never enjoyed that. And so I would say that's like worst piece of advice.
What is one book every teen should read if they want to build something?
Okay, yeah. I think one book that I really recently read, which I really liked, was How to Make a Few Billion Dollars by Brad Jacobs, something like that. I can't remember his name, but I really love that book. Just read it pretty recently, and it's basically this guy who's the CEO of many like boring businesses, like waste management, for example. And he literally has like the largest. He became a billionaire from boring businesses like waste management, and that book was so interesting. I was like super engaged. It's very like simple to read. It's not like super complicated. It has very simple concepts, and it's like the foundation of what you need to build a business. Maybe not so much startup. It's not very startup focused, but it's like a business. And I think those are skills that you would really need in building anything. And so it helps you with like sales, ideation, how to find a problem that people might want. And then I guess it's also about the scaling portion too. Like what do you do when you have something that works? How do you take it to the next level? So that book is really great.
If you could go back and tell your 15-year-old self one thing, what would it be?
Yeah, I think for me, 15-year-old self, I would tell her to like just dive deep into AI, honestly, because I think the earlier that you can get involved in I think the better. And right now, I guess like if for those 15-year-olds who are like listening, so I mean like it's great, like you can still get into that, still be interested in that, but also maybe like robotics or hardware is the next wave, right? So physical AI. How are you applying AI into like the real world? I think that is super interesting, and I think that is still extremely, extremely early. And so I think that would be what I would say.
So you dived into healthcare
Yeah.
around like what age? Because you're saying at 15, you're saying if you could give yourself advice, you would dive into AI. So I want to know when you dived into healthcare then.
Yeah, so healthcare, I didn't really have any experience in healthcare until my freshman year of college. And
Okay.
yeah, so very late, and I think late, early, I guess, like for most
Yeah.
founders, it might be kind of early, but yeah, it was pretty late for me in freshman year of college, and it was through that whole like accelerator program that I did at USC. And so without that, I would have never been interested in healthcare. And I think I was first interested in AI. That's the reason that I wanted to build a startup, because I'd like really like business, and I really like the potential of AI. And so kind of combining those things, and that's why I wouldn't say like anything specific to healthcare, because I think healthcare is a great industry. It's very interesting. I'm still learning about it all the time, and I find it super fascinating. But I think AI is really like the foundation there. And so like that comes first, then healthcare.
What is one thing you're still figuring out?
So since I've like paused on Vera, I'm still figuring out my priorities for what I want to work on for the next year or so, whether that be in healthcare, whether that be in something else, whether that be founding or working at a company. I'm still figuring that out, but I'm like slowly working towards a few different ideas and a few different goals, and nothing is completely set in stone yet, but I am exploring a few ideas in the robotics space, since I found it to be super interesting, and recently had meetings with a few different companies. Some of them include like Physical Intelligence, Scale AI, and just kind of learning as much as I can. Just coffee chatting a bunch of people, trying to learn and build like a foundation in this space. It's something that I'm not really super knowledgeable about. I didn't really get into robotics or physical AI until like about a month or two ago. And so just trying to learn as much as I can. Luckily, I have a few friends who are very deep into the space and they're able to help me a lot. But yeah.
Miki, this has been truly awesome. And before we wrap up, where can people find more about you? Like where they could check out Founder House and any of your other startups?
I'm on social media, like on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter. I think my Instagram for Founder House is just Found Her House, so that's pretty simple. We also have a website as well. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn as well, so anyone's able to reach me there and just connect and send me a message. And I also post a lot of updates there. And then for my like social media account where I post like some content like founder journey stuff, that's Miki.Safro, Miki.Safro. And so I'm on social media, I post a lot about there, like different vlogs. And so yeah, that's just a few ways that people can reach me.
Thank you. All right, everyone. That's it for the episode. And if you learned something valuable from this conversation today, make sure you subscribe, leave a comment, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you're a parent or teen trying to figure out how to build something meaningful, hopefully this gave you some ideas. Remember, Miki turned on multiple internships at 19 to solve a problem affecting millions of people. You don't have to wait until you're ready or until you have the perfect moment. You just have to start. I'm Rayan. This is the AI Parenting Institute, and I'll catch you in the next episode.